Hey, what's up? This is Udolena from Udolena Digital, and today I will talk about a book called Principles by Ray Dailo. Welcome to my channel and be sure to subscribe. My name is Udolena and every Sunday I post a new video. This week is a special week as here in London, where I'm based, there is quarantine. So I'll be doing a few more videos just because I have some extra time on my hands. Today I'm talking about a book which is very interesting and quite significantly big. It's written by Ray Dailo, who is a very successful founder of the Bridgewater hedge fund, appearing much more in TV shows, in YouTube broadcasts, as he published this book, which was basically his life and work principles. He said that he wanted to publish two books, one about kind of living and working well, and one about his financial knowledge and financial understanding. Actually, the first time I found out about Ray Dailo was when I watched the video that he did about how the economy works. It was just after the debt crisis, and I found it fascinating as he is able to condense and to explain really complex terms in very simple words so that everybody can understand it. The book is divided by two parts. There is life principles and there is work principles. So today, because it's a very big book, I'm gonna just cover the life principles, which are already very interesting. It starts with embracing reality and dealing with it. He thinks that one of the biggest challenges for people is to face reality the way it is, since most people actually are more frightened of being wrong than actually being joyful to understand what's true. And this is what is stopping us from really making big decisions, from understanding our principles, looking deeply into our process, is the fact that we really sometimes are afraid to face reality, especially if it's against what we have decided to be our story. So we like to tell ourselves, to delude ourselves until the last moment when it's too late. However, what he says is that whenever you feel mental pain, this is a sign that there is a point where you probably are deluding yourself about something. Maybe there is a very important thing that you have to go through, you have to do, and just convincing yourself, lying to yourself, like looking yourself in the mirror and saying like, I'm not fat, but knowing that you have gained weight and this is not really the way you should be looking. Then he has this 5-step process to get what you want in life, which sounds really exciting. It's super simple. It's nothing really that is going to make you feel, wow, I never thought of doing that. Like when you read Ray Dalilo's rules and principles, you feel like, well, this is kind of common sense. Yeah, it is common sense, but whether you're following it or not, that's another question, right? So the first one is to have clear goals. Well, who hasn't said that? But do you have clear goals? Knowing where you're going, like have some kind of clear goals and really spend time, get enough information, don't fall into the traps of wanting something for the sake of it, but like really search for meaningful things that are going to essentially bring you what you want and really find what you want in life. But of course, when you decide what your goals are, you're gonna see some problems. Let's say I decide to start a YouTube channel. Well, I don't have a camera, or well, nobody likes my videos, or oh, I don't have any subscribers. All kind of problems that are gonna start whatever you become, whatever you decide to be, you first start with problems. And then you have to not tolerate them, but find ways how to dissect them and how to overcome them. Accurately diagnose these problems. So he spends a lot of time on diagnosing, thinking correctly, consulting yourself with knowledgeable people, with believable sources, and with several believable sources. He gives this example where he was at the doctor and he was diagnosed with a really bad disease that they were saying that he's gonna die. Then another doctor he said like he's not gonna die, but they have to take all his guts out and he will be crippled by the end of his life. And there was a third doctor that said that none of this is necessary, that they can do an extra test which can actually prove whether any of these actions is necessary or not. He took the opinion of the third doctor. They actually brought all of them together and they agreed to take this test. And it turned out just before his birthday that he was perfectly healthy and there was no need for him to be frightened or to take this crazy operation that is going to almost cripple him for the rest of his life. So he realized that whenever you are facing a problem, first you consult yourself, you get all the necessary information, you decompose the problem into different steps, and you understand, diagnose really, consulting yourself with believable sources. Design plans which will get you around these problems. So think, of course, like this makes sense. Once you've done your research, what is your plan? And finally, do the necessary to push through these designs to completion. So very, very simple plan. You have goal, there are some problems that occur, you diagnose the problems, you design solutions, and then you have to push them to completion. That's it. These are the 5 steps that will get you anything you want in life. Principle number 3, being radically open-minded. He talks about the fact again that you can be radically, first of all, accepting the truth radically, searching for the truth, not deluding yourself. And second, like one part of this is actually being open-minded. And he talks in a lot of detail about the differences between closed-mindedness and open-mindedness. He talks a lot about the fact that we have ego and we have blind spots. And these both are the biggest problems when it comes to being open-minded. This is actually the core reasons to bad decision making. You have to replace their desire to always be right. You know, you've met these kind of people. They always want to have it right. They are used to being the excellent student at school, always knowing the right answer to every question, and they always have to be right. However, if you want to be open-minded, you have to accept that sometimes you might be wrong, and you have to have this assumption that you are probably wrong. This doesn't mean that you're not convinced in your thoughts, but you should not be so convinced that you are blinded and completely disproving any other opinion. Using questions instead of making statements. So one sign of someone who is close-minded is when someone starts, I might be wrong, but, and then he makes a statement. This is a typical sign of a close-mindedness. When someone starts this way, they kind of make an excuse as if they are open-minded, but it's just a way to hide their close-mindedness. They really want to say, I know I'm not wrong, but this is the answer. Look for this phrase when you speak with people. Close-minded people are also, they hate taking their ideas, getting challenged. They are ready to get into a fight. They make statements instead of asking questions. They like talking instead of listening. They want to be understood rather than understand others. They have very difficult time seeing the world through someone else's eyes. Also, they block others from speaking. So if you see someone who's constantly interrupting, who constantly wants to be heard but doesn't want to listen, this is a typical example of a close-minded person. And then, of course, lack of sense of humility and difficulty to hold 2 different opinions in your head. Actually, if you have watched my video about Charlie Munger, Poor Charlie's Almanac, you will see that he has exactly the same thought about understanding the opponent's part. So when there are 2 contradicting opinions, you have to understand your opponent better than they understand themselves. Now you see a lot of questions where people get into polar opinions. Is quarantine good or is it bad? The economy is gonna crash. No, we have to protect the NHS. And people don't see things through the eyes of the others. It's a lot of division. And you see that on a lot of different questions. And people start getting really emotional, start fighting. There was this movie, Vice. If you watched it, I really recommend you seeing it, where at the end of the movie, it's all about one of the US vice presidents, Dick Cheney. At the end of the movie, they are showing a group of average Americans talking about politics. And suddenly someone mentions Trump, and they start actually a physical fight between the supporters and the ones that are against him. And this is the typical way of how people are. They cannot hold 2 opposite opinions in their head. They cannot see the world through another side. Everybody else is wrong if I am not right. When an open-minded person is speaking, they're typically curious why there is a disagreement in the first place. They try to understand both sides. They genuinely believe that they could be wrong. They are not saying that, oh, I'm wrong every time. They're not some kind of like gutless type of creatures, but they also have the idea that they could be wrong. They are not completely biased towards themselves. They like to listen instead of speaking, opposite of closed-minded people, and they can take thoughts of others without losing their ability to think well. Principle number 4, understand how others are wired and that people are wired differently. This is a very important rule because you have to understand that in each of us there is a fight. There is a fight between conscious and unconscious. Like the unconscious part tells you you're fat. The conscious part says you have to keep diet, you have to work out. The unconscious part says you're always going to be poor. The conscious part says like save money, invest, look for opportunities. If you look at the development of the human brain, you understand that actually a lot of the parts of the unconscious is connected to our survival instincts, that they come from ages and ages ago when it was before people became people. Then you have to understand that you have the fight between feeling and thinking, between the left side and the right side of the brain. So some people are more accustomed, more kind of tending to be right-minded. So right-minded people, that's me. So these are people who are more on creativity. They get easily inspired. They like unorthodoxal things. They like to be surprised. They like fiction, stories, creative storytelling. Whereas people who are more on the math side, on the left side of the brain, they're more planning, more structured, a little bit more towards analytics. You need both of them, and you typically have a balance between the two. But usually one side of the brain is kind of stronger in you, and it's good to understand how different people think. And even what they did in his company in Bridgewater, it was to actually create baseball cards for the employees. So kind of adding the superpowers of every employee and having baseball cards and planning team structure with baseball cards, which might sound ridiculous, but actually it was working very well for them. And this is part of, again, his philosophy of just being honest, accepting the reality the way it is. So number 5 is taking decisions. So making sure you are taking these decisions effectively, which is not as easy as it sounds. But there are 2 main points. So first of all, is the biggest threat is the emotions. And second of all, the decision process is 2 steps. So first, you're learning, and second is deciding. So always take time to get information, as much information from believable sources before you decide. So this is very important when it comes to anything, property decisions, business, life, marriage. So asking fully informed and believable people and making sure you have a diverse perspective. Don't believe anything that you hear. So always proof what you hear, make up your own mind, research yourself. Everything looks bigger up close, so try to see the whole picture, not just focus on one detail. Use probability to make judgment. So he was talking about how come someone who is 51% sure that he is right be in a better position than someone who is at 49% sure that he's right, which probably he is wrong. So it's a very small difference. So using probabilities on how likely you are to be right. So taking this kind of mathematical approach to simple everyday life decisions. And also simplify, use the principles from the book in order to come up with a clear mind. Thank you so much for watching. This is all from me for today. Subscribe to this channel. Thank you so much. I'll share new videos shortly, and I'll see you next week.